Harry and Meghan exposed. Those three words are all over the internet right now, and for a reason. What happened at the New York City Awards wasn't just a public appearance, it was a public unraveling. Cameras flashed, fans cheered, and yet something felt wrong. The charm was gone, the chemistry missing. You could see it in Harry's face, in Meghan's forced smile, in the way they moved like strangers pretending to still be in sync. This wasn't a royal love story anymore. It was a live broadcast of a relationship cracking under pressure. The night started with flashing lights, reporters yelling, fans cheering. "Harry, Meghan, over here!" It was chaos in the best way. The kind of red carpet energy that screams power and prestige. But even in that noise, something felt off. Harry stepped out of the SUV first, looking stiff, his jaw tight. Meghan followed, smiling wide. But it wasn't the relaxed smile people remembered from their wedding days. It was the kind of smile that looks practiced, like she knew cameras were watching every blink. They were late, which didn't help. The press had already been waiting nearly half an hour, and when they finally arrived, it was clear the pressure was on. Meghan reached for Harry's hand, but he didn't meet her eyes. He looked straight ahead, almost robotic, while she whispered something that didn't seem to land. You could tell he just wanted to get inside, to escape the noise, the cameras, the chaos. And then it happened. Out of nowhere, someone from the crowd shouted, "Stop using the children." That one sentence changed the whole atmosphere. The laughter stopped, the clapping faded. You could literally see Harry's face shift. His body stiffened, his head turned slightly toward the voice, but he didn't say a word. Meghan froze for half a second, her smile cracking before she forced it back on. Harry grabbed her arm, not gently, not harshly, just firm, and led her toward the entrance. It wasn't a husband guiding his wife, it was a man trying to end a scene. The crowd went quiet. The photographers, who usually yell to get that perfect shot, lowered their cameras for a moment. Everyone could feel it. That strange air where something beautiful just broke. Inside, they did what they always do. They smiled for the cameras, posed for pictures, acted like nothing happened. But people watching from home could tell. Those weren't the smiles of a couple in sync. They were survival smiles, the kind you wear when you know the show must go on, no matter what's happening behind the curtain. Commentators picked up on it almost instantly. By the next morning, YouTube and Twitter were full of slow-motion breakdowns of their every move. "Look at her hand, it's shaking. See how he pulls away? That wasn't love, that was performance." And honestly, it was hard to argue. When you compared that night to their earlier appearances, the difference was night and day. But if you've been following them for a while, you'd know this wasn't the first sign of trouble. Remember the Kevin Costner event a few months back? The one where Harry looked like he wanted to be anywhere else? Meghan was in full show mode, smiling, laughing, touching his arm, trying to draw him in for the cameras. But Harry barely reacted. His eyes wandered, his shoulders slumped, his hands stayed at his sides. It was subtle but powerful. That moment felt like the soft launch of their downfall. Back then, people brushed it off as exhaustion or travel stress. But looking back, it seems clear. Something deeper was brewing. Harry wasn't angry, just done. That's the word people keep using. Done with pretending. Done with playing the picture-perfect role. Done with being half of a brand instead of a person. Experts have started weighing in too. One body language analyst said Harry's micro-expressions reveal contained irritation, that he's emotionally disconnected in moments where connection is expected. PR experts called it brand fatigue. They said that after the Netflix documentary, the interviews, and the endless media cycle, the couple's image had become overexposed. The sparkle that once sold them as rebels of the monarchy had dulled into something scripted and tired, and audiences noticed. Reddit threads blew up overnight. One post with thousands of upvotes simply said, "Did you see how he looked at her?" The replies were brutal. Some fans defended them, saying everyone has bad days. Others weren't so forgiving. Comments like, "He looks like a man who regrets everything," and "This marriage feels like a business partnership now," filled the internet. The hashtag started trending fast. Royal meltdown. NYC awards tension as Sussex split. It was everywhere. TikTok edits comparing old footage of them laughing together versus now went viral within hours. In every clip, the story looked the same. Her trying to hold on, him trying to get out. By the end of that week, even mainstream news outlets picked it up. They didn't say marriage trouble directly, but the headline said enough. Tense body language at NYC event raises questions. Are the Sussexes cracking under pressure? It's wild how quickly the narrative shifted. A year ago, they were the couple redefining modern royalty. Now every photo becomes proof of distance. Every glance becomes a debate. You can't even tell what's real anymore. Are they fighting? Are they acting? Or are we just watching the slow fade of something that was never built to survive this level of scrutiny? What's most interesting is that New York wasn't the start of this story. It was just the explosion after months of quiet storms. Little moments here and there that didn't make headlines but hinted at something fragile beneath the surface. You could say this night the NYC Awards wasn't just another red carpet. It was the moment their fairy tale officially slipped out of their control. From the outside, they still had everything: fame, money, a platform, an audience. But behind those smiles, behind that forced charm, there was exhaustion. And when exhaustion meets ego, when image starts mattering more than intimacy, the cracks always find a way to show. So as they walked up those steps in New York, side by side but worlds apart, it wasn't a royal couple people were watching anymore. It was two individuals trying to hold together a story that no longer fit. And deep down, everyone watching could feel it. Something broke that night, and no amount of perfect poses or polished statements could hide it. Because the truth is, New York wasn't the beginning. It was just the explosion after months of silent storms. Let's rewind a few months before that New York night. Paris, the city of lights, glamour, and second chances. It was supposed to be Meghan's big comeback. A front-row moment at Paris Fashion Week, where she could remind the world that she was still that woman. The actress, the style icon, the global name. Cameras followed her every move as she stepped out in a stunning Balenciaga dress. For a few minutes it worked. Flashbulbs, smiles, cheers, it looked like the perfect redemption arc. But behind the glossy photos, insiders whispered something embarrassing. That show-stopping outfit everyone was praising, it wasn't gifted. It was borrowed. And in that world, that means everything. When brands truly want you, they send you pieces for keeps. When they don't, they lend them. Borrowed means your name doesn't sell anymore. Borrowed means you've slipped a little from the spotlight. That realization hit hard. The smile stayed, but the pride didn't. In private circles, fashion editors called it quiet humiliation. Meghan had spent years building her brand on exclusivity, and now she was borrowing what used to be given freely. The headlines never said it out loud, but the industry did, and Harry noticed. He might not understand fashion politics, but he understood what it did to her. Still, Meghan didn't stop. A few days later, she filmed something that would change everything. A soft, moody video clip near the Pont de l'Alma tunnel, the same tunnel where Princess Diana's life ended. Meghan, wrapped in a scarf, looked reflective, almost emotional. She smiled faintly, eyes glancing down as if lost in thought. When the clip surfaced online, it exploded. People were furious. Why would she film there? Is she using Diana's memory again? The comments were brutal. Fans of Harry's late mother called it insensitive. Even neutral viewers felt uneasy. Inside the walls of their Paris hotel, things weren't calm either. Harry was furious. For him, that tunnel wasn't content, it was sacred ground, the place that changed his entire life. To see Meghan there, turning it into a filmed moment, felt like a betrayal he couldn't explain. They argued. It wasn't loud, but it was deep. Meghan tried to defend herself, saying, "It's just a clip. People read too much into everything." But Harry couldn't see it that way. To him, it wasn't just a clip. It was the one place on earth he wished the cameras had never touched. And now the woman he loved had turned it into a backdrop. After that fight, something inside him went quiet. Not cold, just quiet. He stopped correcting her in public, stopped defending her online, stopped explaining her choices. Silence became his only escape. And that silence started following them everywhere they went. Soon after, fans noticed Harry beginning to pull back from the spotlight. During events, he'd linger behind her, barely making eye contact. Their PR team called it resting, avoiding overstimulation, or just letting Meghan have her moment. But people close to the team said otherwise. They described two people living together but moving separately. On one European tour, staff quietly confirmed they had booked separate hotel rooms. Not because of scheduling, but because Harry needed space. His team tried to cover it, telling reporters it was for security reasons. But inside those walls, the truth was simple. Distance had replaced intimacy. Then came the Netflix aftershock. The documentary that was supposed to tell their story, to show their truth, ended up building a wall between them. Harry watched scenes of himself replayed and edited for drama. The emotions he'd shared were now part of a show. And somewhere between episode 1 and 6, He began to wonder if the love story they were selling was still real, or just well rehearsed. Analysts started calling it false intimacy. On screen, they looked united. Off screen, they were falling apart. The Paris trip only confirmed it. What was once their shared mission, protecting their truth, was now a performance they couldn't stop acting out. Psychologists, who followed the couple's journey, began discussing something called secondary grief. It's when a person relives trauma through someone else's actions. For Harry, every symbolic gesture Meghan made about Diana reopened wounds he thought had healed. The Paris tunnel wasn't just a backdrop, it was a mirror reflecting everything he hadn't processed. You can't heal, one expert said, when your pain becomes someone else's brand. And that's exactly what seemed to be happening. Meghan wasn't trying to hurt him, but her constant need to control the narrative made him feel like his mother's memory was being used, even unintentionally. After Paris, Harry changed. He stopped looking comfortable in interviews. He smiled less, spoke less, and started keeping his hands to himself when cameras were near. Meghan, on the other hand, doubled down. Bigger smiles, bolder outfits, louder confidence. It was like she was overcompensating for both of them. At later public events, the pattern was clear. Meghan spoke for both of them. Harry stayed silent. On stage, she laughed at jokes he didn't react to. Offstage, photographers caught him walking a few steps behind. The tabloids had a field day. The ice age between them, one headline read. Distant Duke, determined Duchess, said another. Photos don't lie. In shot after shot, he leaned away while she leaned in. His face said what his words didn't. He was exhausted. Not angry, just done pretending everything was fine. For their fans, it was confusing. How could the same couple who stood hand in hand against the royal establishment now look so broken in public? How could something that seemed so united fall apart so quietly? Behind the scenes, close friends said Harry had changed his daily habits. He avoided press meetings. He stayed off social media. He started spending long hours in hotel gyms or reading alone. Meanwhile, Meghan's team continued business as usual. Meetings, calls, photo ops. It was as if their lives were running on two different tracks. Paris didn't just expose Meghan to the industry. It exposed the fracture lines in their marriage. The city that was supposed to celebrate her power instead showed the world her vulnerability and Harry's breaking point. By the time they landed back home, the gap between them wasn't emotional anymore. It was visible. Small gestures, no hand-holding, no shared looks turned into headlines. And every time Meghan smiled for the camera, Harry's blank expression told another story. People close to them said Harry wasn't angry all the time, just distant. He'd stopped fighting because he'd stopped believing he could fix it. That's what silence does. It replaces words that no longer work. So when they later appeared in New York, that strange energy on the red carpet wasn't random. It wasn't a bad night. It was the echo of everything that had already fallen apart. The cracks didn't appear under those flashing lights. They were already there, just waiting to be seen. By the time they landed in New York, the silence wasn't new. It was habit. And that night it finally spoke louder than words.